Well, we said we would never cover The Little Mermaid again. The story was over. The fish was out at sea, but here we are back again. This time because the media is spinning furiously, trying to make it seem in any way possible that this film is doing fine. That despite the fact that their narrative has been blown up. They're like a maelstrom of mistruth out there, and we aim to end it. All right, folks, welcome back to another fantastic day here on the WDW Pro channel. So happy to have each and every one of you joining us today. And don't forget, wherever you are, be working to make the world a little bit better. You'll feel better. The world will be better. People will be better. It's a great thing to do. We're going to do our best to do that little thing today by explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve, this time by telling the truth and parsing out how the media is attempting to spin things into, well, a less than truthful position. All right, we are talking about Little Mermaid, and we're going to be starting off with Collider. If you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, and subscribe. And those algorithms, they can't stop you when you click it. It's the notification bell. Here we go. The Little Mermaid sails past new milestone at the global box office. This by Raul Malhotra. The movie is swimming along in the domestic box office, but struggling to stay afloat overseas. Now, you might read that header and think, okay, well, this is not too bad, eh? But hang tight. I'm going to show you where the spin occurs. Is The Little Mermaid a hit or not? The answer changes with each new layer of context you bring to the table. Stop! Stop! No, it is not a hit. Oh my gosh. A film is not a hit when it stands to lose $100 million. And it doesn't matter how they frame this. It doesn't matter what you bring to the table. It's going to lose $100 million. On the face of it, the fact that Disney's live-action remake of the classic 1989 animated film has now passed the $400 million mark globally is worth celebrating. No, it's not. This is great. No, it's not. This film costs something like $300 million to create. It has a marketing budget on top of it. It needs at least $800 million to make a profit. You're halfway there at the end of the run. This is like celebrating an NBA team that's been down by 20, and with 5 seconds left to go in the fourth quarter, they've cut it down to 10. You don't celebrate that. But when you consider that more than half of that has come from domestic theaters, the achievement loses some of its value. And then when you take into account that the movie cost a reported $250 million to produce, minus marketing, and folks, it's higher. That was the assigned budget. We know that due to the pandemic, it went higher. That $400 million number doesn't look so special after all. The rule of thumb is that a movie of this size needs to gross twice its budget in theaters to break even. Pay attention. I'm going to show you where the spin happens here. Which means that Little Mermaid, after 2 weeks of full release, is still in the red. And it's currently pacing to conclude its global run with around $500 million, which would barely put it in the clear. False! False! Let's show you the very simple math and how this is so basically confused. Here's what's happened. This individual took the original $250 million total for the production budget, which we now know is not accurate. It's more, but took the 250 and then just multiplied that and said, oh, got to get $500 million. And ignores the fact that it's $250 million to produce it. Doesn't include the marketing, which we know is something like $100 million. Ignores that there were an additional $50 million added to this thing because of the pandemic, and then comes up with a number of $500 million. The actual cost for this film is $300 million to produce, minimum $100 million to advertise. Multiply that by 2. What do you get? $800 million. It's that simple. When you make this equation based solely on the production and completely ignore the other part of the budget, right? If you ignore half the budget, then you can get these crazy numbers where you're like, it only has to make $500 million and then it'll succeed. No, it won't. The Little Mermaid added an estimated $22 million from domestic theaters this weekend, taking its running total to $228 million. The movie has made around $185 million from overseas territories so far. That's a weird way to put it. for a running worldwide haul of 413 million, according to Variety. Now, that's as far as we need to go, because I want to explain to you why the media is now attempting to make it seem as if this film will break even when it won't, and it clearly will not break even. The reason for that is because the narrative has been completely blown up. They were hoping that Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse or Transformers, that those would also falter, and then they could blame all of this on people being bigoted or horrible because of skin color. But that was blown up. And after that happened, they could no longer claim that Little Mermaid was failing due to that sort of an issue. Now, here's why. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, of course, is extremely quote-unquote diverse. It features a lead character who has the same ethnicity as the new Ariel in the live-action remake. And now Transformers has come out, and it's one of the most diverse casts imaginable. It's the most diverse Transformers cast ever seen, and it's doing just fine as well. So with that narrative taken away from the mainstream media, they are trying to find some way to say that The Little Mermaid is going to at least break even. They know it won't. This from the Hollywood Reporter. Patrick Brzezinski. China box office. Transformers Rise the Beast flexes with $40 million start. The seventh film in Paramount's Transformers franchise earned Hollywood's second biggest opening in China for 2023. Chinese moviegoers' abiding love for the Transformers franchise was on full display over the weekend as Transformers Rise the Beast opened to $40 million, the second biggest start for a Hollywood film in the country this year. The new Paramount film, the seventh in the Transformers series, has earned solid social scores. 9.1 on Douban, 9.1 on Maoyan, and 6.3 on Douban, setting it up for a respectable career run. Current projections in China see the film finishing with around $85 million. Now, the problem for all of this, of course, is that this film in China will only bring back 20 to 25% of its total box office run. You see, the Chinese government and the theaters over there take about 75 to 80% of the total revenues, and they hold it. And the corporations, the studios from America, they only get 20 to 25% back. And so that's why chasing after the Chinese market with these movies turns out to be a little bit of a fool's errand, right? It's fool's gold, in fact, because that $85 million looks really good. What if I told you, though, that at best, 20 million of that is coming back to the United States? Would you really make a Transformers movie and spend all that money and try to get those accolades in China to make back a paltry $20 million? I don't think you would. But again, we're continuing down this road of the media spin. Now, I don't think Patrick is spinning too hard here. It's true that it made that kind of money in China. It's just that these media outlets need to say, they need to tell the truth and just explain to the audience, by the way, they made $20 million. They made $20 million, and China made $65 million. That's what we need to be talking about here. Now, again, back to Little Mermaid, though, and why the media is really struggling. This is an article out of GameSpot by Phil Owen, how Transformers Rise the Beast director was inspired to make a more diverse robot blockbuster. And it essentially just goes on to talk about all of the accolades regarding the diversity of the cast, the director, etc. Give some kudos to Michael Bay for wanting that to happen. But if you just read through it, it's telling you that this is what The Little Mermaid was supposed to be, but Disney screwed up the marketing there, right? Disney turned it into something very divisive, whereas in this case, with Rise of the Beast, the marketing here was all about legacy and all about unity and all about friendship. If you looked at that, the videos that they did about Optimus Prime and the history of that character, it was all about respect. Not the same thing as what happened with Little Mermaid, and that's why we had such a vast difference. Now, how vast was that difference? Let's wrap this thing up by going to comingsoon.net, and let's see how this really played out, these different strategies. Remember, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Transformers had very, very different marketing strategies, very, very different media coverage before they opened than The Little Mermaid. We have now seen those strategies come to a head. We know now in a versus mode exactly how these marketing approaches play out in the market. And let's just say that the divisive tone of Disney did not pay dividends. Box office results: Transformers Rise the Beast edges out Spider-Man. This by Jeff Ames, over on Coming Soon. It was a tough battle, but eventually Optimus Prime and his robot pals managed to edge out Sony's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse at the domestic box office. By the way, that's great for Spider-Man to still be competitive for the #1 slot. Per Deadline, Transformers Rise the Beast earned $60.5 million in its debut frame, enough to beat Spidey's $50.5 sophomore weekend. Now, 60.5 domestic is probably not something that Transformers is going to be crowing about. But really, and we've known this all along, Transformers is an international movie. It skews heavily towards the international, and so that's what we'll be tracking. Both picks are racking up big numbers overseas. Transformers jumped to 170.5 million total, 40 million of which comes from China. And again, folks, that's why we brought that up just a little bit ago. Of that 170.5, take off the 40, okay? Because of that 40, 8 million is what's actually going to be coming back to the coffers of America. So take off the 40 off of 170.5 and add that 8 million back, and that's what you'll come up with how this film is actually doing. Spider-Man's global take rose to 225.5, and the anticipated sequel has already surpassed the 190.2 million global gross of the original. Transformers also hauled in 6.4 million from essentially 400 IMAX screens. While Rise of the Beast doesn't get to brag about records and pales in comparison to Michael Bay's earlier picks, its opening at least marks a huge jump from Bumblebee's $21.6 million haul and proves there's still love for the action franchise. Can the series return to its former box office glory, especially considering the film's nifty twist that could potentially take Optimus and friends into a completely different realm? And also, folks, I think what that's talking about is, of course, the Hasbro Cinematic Universe. We have reached out with our sources to find out more about the Hasbro Cinematic Universe, and we look forward to bringing it to you. All right, so let's take a look at these top results. We've got Transformers Rise of the Beast at the top, 60.5 million domestic 3-day. We've got Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, 55.4 million domestic. And then we've got The Little Mermaid coming in with a semi-respectable 22.7 million. That's not the worst drop-off we have ever seen. But remember that once we get into these lower numbers, sometimes those drop-offs decrease. So it's a catch-22. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is that The Little Mermaid domestically is still at 228, and that means that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is likely to pass up The Little Mermaid either today or tomorrow, despite having had a significantly later launch than The Mermaid. There's one other point we need to bring up very quickly here. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, a very good hold at the box office. And off the 3-day, $7 million still for Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, that brings it to $335.4 million domestically, but also the film is at $800 million worldwide. There is a question, though. Why do we still say that Guardians of the Galaxy has not yet broken even? We know that it needs $800 million to break even according to the normal equations we use. But the reason that we're not saying yet that Guardians of the Galaxy has broken even, and I do believe that it will, by the way, over the next few weeks, but the reason for that is because of this China issue that we've been talking about in this video. There's a large portion of Guardians of the Galaxy's intake that came from China, and that is drastically less revenue coming into Disney to help them reach that break-even point. Guardians of the Galaxy likely needs about $850 million to break even. I do believe it will get there. It'll probably take it another 3-4 weeks to do so as it sort of trickles out these revenues worldwide over the summer against stiff competition, but I do believe that it'll make it. And then the other thing about this, what's really fascinating is Disney has pushed this Guardians of the Galaxy film out so that it's going to last all summer long. Not typical for Disney. They have tended to like to pull these movies quickly and put them on Disney+. Why is Guardians of the Galaxy different? Well, it all comes down to the fact that Disney is probably looking at Guardians of the Galaxy now, given that they understand that, well, Haunted Mansion will do nothing. The Marvels is going to be miserable. They have the situation with Indiana Jones, where it may be the biggest flop of all time. The Little Mermaid is not performing the way they wanted. Literally, as we said in the video yesterday, Disney is looking at a scenario where they don't make a profit on anything, right? Guardians of the Galaxy, they may break even, but everything else is a flop. Guardians of the Galaxy right now is the lead horse they have. So why would they pull it? They should do everything in their power to give it the best chance possible to make $900 million, even though that is extremely unlikely. But it's the best they've got. So why pull that movie when it's going to be your lead runner? Let it have its best chance possible. That's the strategy at Disney, and that's the strategy at the box office. Mario Brothers also doing quite well considering how long it's been out there. It's going to land in the number 2 spot for all times in terms of an animated feature-length release, box office worldwide. Congratulations to Mario. One more time for the plumbers. Wahoo! We'll be talking about the Nintendo Cinematic Universe real soon, possibly later today. So hang tight, folks. More information coming your way. I hope you enjoy content like this. If you do, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about the notification bell. The commentary has come to a close. Now it's time for your comments. We covet your comments. We care about what you think. Drop one down below. Tell us what's going on at the box office and what have you seen that perhaps we should cover here on the channel. If you're not yet a member, consider it. The price of a soda, you get all kinds of exclusive, incredible content, including member spotlights, abilities to vote on the topics we'll cover, and more. And folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Make sure to catch The Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.